All right, Cowboys fans, if you want Dallas to beat Minnesota this week on Sunday Night Football, then like the video. It's worked pretty well so far. 5 straight wins for the Dallas Cowboys. So let's keep the positive vibes going here. Whether you're superstitious or even just a little stitious, I think it's good practice that if you want the Cowboys to win, to like this video. You're watching the Cowboys Report. I am Tom Downey. Let's preview this week's game as Dallas hits the road to take on Minnesota on Sunday Night Football. A little prime time action. The Cowboys have the better mark. They are 5-1. The scoring offense now, number 1 in the NFL at a blistering 34.2 points per game, 24.3 defensive, the scoring defense. But DVOA nerd numbers, which have not always been favorable to Dallas, actually have them as a top 10 offense and a top 10 defense entering this past week of games. That shouldn't have changed. Minnesota, I think, is a better team than maybe what that 3-3 mark shows. But Dallas is a 2.5-point favorite on the road. I think we once again might get some cardiac Cowboys action in this one. Now, in this 5-game winning streak, the Cowboys on the road barely took down the LA Chargers, a thrilling game against a good team. Philadelphia beat them handily. Carolina, a bigger win than the score indicated, and blew out the Giants. Not great teams. Cowboys took care of business. Then they survived in Week 6 against the Patriots in a very, very close contest that came all the way down to overtime. That is something Minnesota knows very well so far this year. A Week 1 loss, 27-24, a game they could have won had it not been for a late Dalvin Cook fumble. They lose to Cincinnati 27-24 in overtime. They lost to the Cardinals on a missed chip shot field goal by their kicker. They know our pain too there, the Vikings do. They start the year 0-2, right? Since then, 3-1. They beat Seattle fairly handily. They're kind of an iffy team, especially without Russell Wilson. Lost by 7, a bit of a narrow one against the Cleveland Browns, and then very close games. A win over the Lions, a win over the Panthers, that one coming in overtime. What I'm saying, folks, is this. I think the Vikings are one of the 5 toughest matchups left on the schedule for Dallas. They are better than what their record indicates. They're right in there with, the Saints game. Then, of course, maybe a bit of a tear break, Arizona, the Raiders. I still think the Chiefs are inside that category as well. It's not going to be an easy game in prime time, although Kirk Cousins, not great in prime time. Again, the betting odds, if you missed that earlier, Dallas is a 2.5-point favorite on the road. The over-under, now 54. I saw it at 55 at one point. That might change as the week goes on. We'll spend some more time previewing this matchup. But first, as we always do on our previews, predict the score of the Cowboys at the Vikings. Normally, I wait till the end to give you my prediction. But after this YouTube ad break, I'm going to break down mine. So get your votes in at the pinned comment right now. I've got the cardiac Cowboys showing up once again. Dallas, for the record, is undefeated against the spread this year. Good teams win, great teams cover. I think this one will come down to a field goal one way or the other, or a last-second drive just like last week. I've got Dallas winning, though, 27-26. I think Minnesota's play style, as we'll get into in a little bit, does fit them pretty well against this Cowboys defense. But let's talk about Dak Prescott, because I know many of you are like, oh, is Dak going to play? Maybe you misheard what Jay Glazer said. The Cowboys remain, as they've been, optimistic about Dak Prescott playing against Minnesota. Dak, by the way, folks, is out of the walking boot right now. You might see him a bit limited to an extent at practice. The Cowboys will be cautious because, as we'll get into, they could have Dak for maybe 3 games the rest of the way, and that alone might be enough to win the NFC East this year. But the bye week came at a really good time for Dak Prescott. Gave him extra time to get fully healthy. I think he would have gutted through that calf injury. Always worried about it becoming worse, but it is a very different degree of calf injury than the one Michael Gallup suffered earlier this year. More on Gallup, by the way, coming up in a little bit. But Prescott is among the NFL MVP favorites right now, completing an obscene 73.1% of his passes, a great 16-4 touchdown interception ratio. Hopefully during the bye, the Cowboys figured out their red zone just a little bit more. Now, God forbid, knock on wood, something happens to Dak Prescott. I still think it would end up being Cooper Rush. He, of course, has been ahead of Will Grier for all the games. Maybe that changes at some point soon, but we'll see. In the end, as long as you've got Dak Prescott out there, the Cowboys are going to be involved and in competition for pretty much every single game that they play. I fully expect to have Dak Prescott out there this week. What are you guys thinking, though? Are you maybe a bit concerned? I'm typing in my Y from yes, but I want to hear from you. So head down to the comments, spam it with your votes for me. Will Dak play this week? Y for yes or N for no. Let's check in now, kind of overall, what this game means for Dallas. In particular, NFC and playoff stuff, right? The Cowboys are 5-1 right now in the division. That is the same number of wins as every other team has losses. Washington, Philly, and New York are all 2-5. The odds right now are wildly in the Cowboys' favor, minus 2,800. Let me put this in perspective for you. If you were to say head over to, I don't know, maybe Bet US, for example, and bet just $10 on the Cowboys to win the division right now, you would win 36 cents. There's really no reason to bet outside of maybe some quick return on your investment. Dallas is going to win the division. And that, frankly, has been clear for really 2 or 3 weeks now. That's why on Twitter, I have been advocating, hey, you got to pay attention to more than just your division. Remember, folks, the NFL playoff picture this year, 7 teams, only 1 bye. You want that bye. You need that bye if you're Dallas. Because the NFC, Arizona, Tampa, Green Bay, the Rams, maybe the Saints, maybe the Vikings, the Falcons now in the mix. You want that bye. That is going to make your life a lot easier. Your odds are going to go way up if you can get the number 1 seed. Teams are going to lose, but Dallas, they're going to lose games too. Can you get to 3 losses only? If you're in that area, maybe then you set yourself up to get in that coveted bye. As things sit right now, here are the NFC Championship odds. A bit of a very stacked, top-heavy top 5 right now. Tampa, plus 225. The Rams, plus 450. The Cowboys, plus 450. Same with Arizona. Green Bay at plus 550. So a little bit more potential earnings here if you were to bet on Dallas to win the NFC Championship. $10 there, you win 45. Whether you want to bet on Dallas, play it safe, win the division, take home the crown, or even the Super Bowl, or just this week's game, do it with our sportsbook partner, Bet US. 125% deposit bonus at chatsports.com/bet. Use that promo code Cowboys125. That'll get you, when you put down at least $100, a 125% deposit bonus. More injury stuff here as it relates to guys potentially coming back. So Kelvin Joseph, Sean McKeon have already been designated to return from IR. They have already returned to practice. Now, I think those guys, probably on like Friday or Saturday, end up getting activated. You don't have to rush it back. They've still got time in that practice window. And then Michael Gallup, meanwhile, well, the report today is that Gallup is expected to practice as well, which would mean he would be designated to return from IR. Now, remember, there's a 21-day window of practice time for those guys coming back from IR in which they don't have to count against the 53-man roster. So just because Gallup gets designated to return does not mean he's a guarantee to play this upcoming week for the Dallas Cowboys. Still, I thought after the bye was the right timing for Michael Gallup to come back from that calf injury, a much more severe one than the one Dak Prescott has. So I do wonder if this ends up being the week in which Gallup returns. And remember, as these 3 guys come back, other players will have to be released as well or put on IR to make room for them. So what do you think? Will Michael Gallup play this week? Get your predictions in for me in the comments. A for yes and B for no. I also want to mention Dorance Armstrong, who has missed, I think he missed the entire 5-game stretch there, longer than you would expect, given that you could put him on IR for 3 weeks. But sounds like Armstrong, who the Cowboys took a very cautious approach with, is also going to be back in time for this game against Minnesota. Dallas, unlike some teams, appear to be getting healthier as the year goes on. And as we always are, folks, for these games involving the Cowboys, unless my child is on her way, will be live for the Cowboys at the Minnesota Vikings right here on the Cowboys Report. We'll have our watch party, play some games that may or may not involve drinking, have some fun, and watch the game together. So if you want to join us, and these are some of our most popular shows, now's a great time. Hit that big red button and subscribe. That way you don't miss out on anything. All right, I wanted to mention now some more about this Cowboys-Vikings game. In particular, I want to emphasize this point. This is one of the tougher matchups left. As I mentioned, Saints game, maybe. I'm not sure how good they really are at this point yet. The Chiefs game, I still think they're going to be a dangerous threat there. And then I think the Cardinals game and the Raiders game are going to be some of your tougher matchups. And part of that is because of what Minnesota has on offense. Now, we can't talk about the Vikings offense without talking about one of the defensive player of the year favorites right now, Trevon Diggs. These Pro Football Reference numbers, by the way, exactly 50% completion rate, which is awesome. 332 yards. That's a fine figure given how much he's been targeted. 7 interceptions, 11 pass breakups. I saw some of this from Vikings media /fan of, well, I'll keep throwing at Trevon Diggs. Honestly, if I'm Minnesota, why would I do that? Minnesota doesn't just have one really good receiver that you got to target on even if Trevon Diggs is shadowing him. Minnesota has two, one of the best 1-2 punches in receiver in the NFL with Justin Jefferson and Adam Thielen. Those two are incredibly dynamic. That is right up there with the Dallas Cowboys, the Bucs, etc., as a very tough to stop 1-2 punch. And hell, KJ Osborne has been playing pretty well. So, I don't know, if I were Minnesota, I would probably focus on throwing at whoever is not being guarded by Trevon Diggs. And at some point, I think Trevon Diggs will not get an INT. Is this the week or no? So will Diggs pull down yet another INT? Pretty straightforward yes or no response here. 1 for yes or 0 for no. Another thing I'm concerned about is this man, Dalvin Cook. The Vikings are able to run the football mostly effectively. And the Cowboys, outside of last week against the Patriots, have done a great job. Part of that, though, is they've been behind in many games. And at some point, I think you're going to see teams go, you know what, let's not throw it. Let's try to run the ball against the run defense that last year was near the bottom in the NFL. I think Minnesota will try to establish that run and get the ground game going, and I am worried about Dallas consistently being able to stop the run. That is a red flag for me. And of the remaining teams the Cowboys play this year, beyond just the running game, Kirk Cousins legitimately is one of the better quarterbacks. I mean, you've got Derek Carr's playing great right now. I still would never doubt Patrick Mahomes either. I think you got to put Kyler Murray in that conversation. Kirk might be third best one left. And I know not everyone loves Kirk Cousins. I get that. He's bad in prime time. But of the QBs left, I mean, he's better than Daniel Jones and Taylor Heineke. So it is, I think, a tougher matchup this week for Dallas against Minnesota. I still think the Cowboys are going to win. I hope the red zone inefficiencies get sorted out. But by the way, even with the red zone woes, you're the number one scoring offense in the NFL. So yes, I do like Dallas to win this game, but I think it'll be a cardiac Cowboys type of matchup where Minnesota at home is going to hang tough at minimum.